All right, this is episode 2 of Strife Talking Points today, and I decided to flip on over to MSNBC. Can't really lie to you, I'm not a massive MSNBC fan. They are forever on Russia, and we're just going to slide down. Russia investigation, Chris Christie, which I actually just did a little thing on him earlier. Not as much Russia stuff as here as I thought. But as I kind of went through the page, I read this. 26 minutes ago, Devos gets heat on campus sex assault plan. You're a shame to all women. Anytime I see that, the shaming coming out, I really want to know what's going on. So you can see here I kind of did a little research, flipped through some different articles, and I wanted to see what was going on. Betsy Devos' proposal on campus sexual assault case draws over 100,000 responses. I was a victim of campus sexual harassment, one person wrote. It's clear the proposed rules would not protect students. If you haven't seen this, Title IX has been heating up in the last few years through colleges, governments, enforcement of it, how federal law requires them to take this stuff seriously. With the conclusion on Wednesday of a 60-day public comment period, the Federal Register noted 103 letters and messages were logged online, revealing just how passionate people remain on either side of the debate. What really the debate is she was trying to work through the legality of what they're doing. For this, if you don't know, if you are accused, the college has basically the right to judge jury on their own without any type of oversight. There doesn't have to be a trial. There doesn't have to be anything. And that's kind of what they're going for. And you can just go through all these articles. Betsy Devos overhaul Obama-era Title IX guidance on campus sexual assault. The Obama administration guidance for how campuses address sexual assault failed too many students and announced that she intended to replace the department's current approach with a workable, effective, and fair system. Devos said the system needed to do more for survivors of sexual assault and to ensure fair due process for the accused. This is kind of the point that makes people, one side very upset, is due process for the accused. Every survivor of sexual misconduct must be taken seriously. Every student accused of sexual misconduct must know that guilt is not predetermined. In the current Me Too era, believe all women. Guilt must be assumed as predetermined. If someone accuses you, you are guilty. That is that, and there can be no other stance. However, she is trying to establish a system that, uses the law appropriately, as the U.S. does. You're legally guaranteed representation in trial, and since these colleges are federally funded, she's basically saying you will have to go through some type of trial instead of just being assumed guilty. The truth is that the system established by the prior administration has failed too many students, she said during remarks at George Mason University in Virginia. Survivors, victims of a lack of due process, and campus administrators have all told me the current approach does a disservice to everyone involved. We will seek public feedback, and then of course 100,000 plus responses. DeVos's announcement drew criticism from advocates for survivors who feared any impending changes would roll back key gains made by the Obama administration to prioritize combating campus sex assault. Now, I had to do quite a bit of research here, kind going through, these are just the various articles that are directly related to NBC. I always like to click all the links. DeVos now faces wide range of pressure from those who say it would be heartbreaking for her to scale back Obama-era guidance to those who say guidance has created a dangerous precedent in schools. The precedent in schools is assumed guilt from the get-go without any legal representation, or the administration basically makes the decision and everyone is held from there. This is not something... no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, denied benefits of, or subject to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. That is essentially the statute for Title IX. And she's basically looking at how to reapproach these guidelines that colleges are going through. I'm sure if you've watched any of the news in the last few years, you've seen fake cases coming back and forth. It's always assumed guilt. One controversial aspect of a letter calls for institutions to use the preponderance of evidence standard of proof in such cases instead of a higher standard of clear and convincing evidence. Basically, more of a legal standard. Advocates for assault survivors argue the preponderance of evidence standard was already in place in many schools before the 2011 guidelines, which advocates for the accused say arguing that standard could pressure institutions to rule too often in favor of accusers for fear of losing federal funding. Basically, that's requiring too much evidence to be found guilty. I went and looked this up. This is the actual Title IX description. This is page 2 from the U.S. Department of Education. The statistics on sexual violence are both deeply troubling and call to action. A report prepared for the National Institute of Justice found that 1 in 5 women are victims of completed or attempted sexual assault while in college. I found that crazy. That means 20% of all women who go through college have been sexually assaulted. And as you go through this, many of them apparently have happened multiple times. I went all the way to the point where I was reading the sexual victimization of college women. This is a unique read. I was going through it and I found some pretty interesting facts of how the questions are. And these things are rape, attempted rape, completed sexual coercion, attempted sexual coercion, completed sexual contact without force, attempted sexual contact without force, threat of rape, threat or force of rape, threat of penetration without force, threat of contact without force. If you as a man in college coerce a woman, talk a woman into having sex with you with no threat of force, with no anything, if you talk someone into sleeping with you, that falls under sexual victimization. If you attempt contact with a woman without force, that is listed under sexual victimization. If you have completed sexual contact without threat of force, violence of any kind, that is considered sexual victimization. If you threaten to touch someone without threat of force, that is considered sexual victimization. Any contact between a male and a female under these statutes, except for explicitly agreed to terms, is considered sexual victimization. If you read through this, it is extremely grim way to view contact between two people. Coercion, just basically talking to someone, talking them into it, attempting to talk someone into it. completed sexual contact without force, attempted sexual contact without force, threat of penetration without force, threat of contact without force. These are the mainstays. When you look at just the strict rape statistics they add in here, or threats of force, the numbers plummet. However, in order to make it sound like this is just the worst time of in history for women, they've included so much other information in here, just trying to skew a study one way or another. I don't see how. 568 incidents here. Attempted sexual contact without force, 133 incidents. Completed sexual contact without force, 80 incidents. Completed sexual contact with threat. Okay, so here's threat. Here's threat of force, so 160. Threat of rape. Threat of contact with force. So you can't end up at 568. Completed sexual coercion, talk someone into sleep with you. Attempted, asking someone. This is not the study that you should use. This is a study, basically, has a guy ever tried to proposition you? Has a guy ever said something to you about how you look? Has a guy ever liked you and followed you and tried to make conversation with you? That's actually down here at the bottom. All attempts by men to attract or go after women is negative. It is considered victimization. This is an extremely one-sided study, and I don't see how it can be fostered that this is the standard as provided. I guess in this era, that's what we've got to deal with. But as far as bringing legality into what's going on, I believe that in the U.S., a federally funded institution should be forced to use legal standards when approaching a legal case. Sexual assault, rape are considered legal. Walking past someone saying you look nice is not sexual assault. Now, this is Education Department official apologize for campus assault comments. Candace Justice, acting secretary for civil rights, apologized, saying 90% of campus sexual assault accusations develop out of drunken sex or breakups. That's actually how I ended up at that. I was trying to find any validity to that story or any other type of deal. Very limited research on that I could find in my short time here. However, Devos civil rights pick once claimed anti-white bias. Basically, she was stating that affirmative action limits the amount of white people that can be allowed to get into school, basically as a band-aid for the solution. As most liberal solutions to a problem, giving special assistance to minority students is a band-aid solution to a deep problem, she wrote. No one, least of all minority students, is well served by receiving special treatment based on race and ethnicity. Dropout rates for the minority students, black students going to college, is right at 60%. Various white dropout rates is approximately 40%. It varies by school. However, that is trending national average is about 60% of black students drop out during the 4-year period, where it's closer to 40 for white and white and Hispanic people. Just wanted to throw that in there at the end. And, you know, if you have the chance, this National Center for Justice can get you there. And it basically looks like the whole thing behind this Betsy Devos is she is wanting the federally funded colleges to treat sexual assault and rape under actual criminal, more along the lines of criminal statutes, rather than um, the believe the victim mentality, and it is apparently an outrage. I'd like to know your thoughts on this. This was just a side story where I'm reading through the news for the day, and I would highly recommend U.S. Department of Justice, the report here from the National Institute of Justice. Go check it out. It is an interesting read. At least the stuff that I went through, just describing all the different types of incidents, what is considered what, and essentially, yeah, everything seems to be listed as sexual victimization by it, any and all contact, anything where you decide it's unwanted before, during, or after, or it's crazy. So take a look at it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.